All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Gonna present my topic today: more than study hall, reimagining the academic center as the student athlete's third space. This is based on a paper I wrote for grad school. I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. So, my name's Miranda Hayes. I'm a graduate from the University of Louisiana. I graduated in 2022. As a student, I spent 2 years as an athletic training student and a recruiting and an operations intern. And then for a year post grad, I was the assistant director of on campus recruiting. I moved straight into this role as the academic counselor here at UL. I work primarily with football, a little bit with men's basketball, and then I support our spirit squads as well. I've been here right at 3 years. Today is actually my 3-year anniversary. My director told me that today. I didn't even realize it. So that's huge for me. And then I'm currently in the Master's of Education program at Nichols State University. So I'm excited to be with you all today. Thanks for joining. Today it's going to be super straightforward. We're just going to talk about third spaces, what they are, why they're important to society in general, and then specifically why they're important to athletics and the academic space. We'll talk a little bit about some physical changes that we can make to our spaces to promote a community-based environment. We won't stay there too long because that's expensive, and I know none of us have budgets. Bulk of the presentation is going to be in this third learning objective. We're going to talk about 3 low to no cost cultural and operational changes that we can make to lean a little more into that third space area. And then I've got a short little starter kit that you can apply to your facility if it's something you're looking to do. So first and foremost, what is a third space, right? So it's a concept that was coined by Ray Oldenburg, a generic designation for a great variety of public places, regular, voluntary, informal, and anticipated gatherings beyond the realms of home and work. So super simple terms. If your first space is home and your second space is work, the third space is somewhere else. So for our athletes, first space is home. Their second space is either here or at practice because that's where they spend, that's their work, that's their job. And then their third space is up to them or up to us. So it's a neutral ground that's social and supportive, supposed to level the status of its guests, and people are free to come and go as they please. So think about what your third space would be. Maybe it's a coffee shop, maybe it's the gym. Why do you go there? What do you like about it? Why do you like to spend your time there? And just keep that in the back of your mind for the rest of this presentation. Oldenburg said that, to live a balanced and happy life, you need to have engagement in all 3 of these spaces. They are supposed to be a place for public gatherings, for social vibes, community. In their truest form, they're free, but they don't always have to be. They're just supposed to be low-cost barriers is all. He called them societal glue. They bind people together to construct communities. So keep that in the back of your mind as we talk through this presentation. Third spaces are important for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, behavioral and social benefits. So a lot of these studies are done in the context of grade school. So regulate and promote positive social behaviors, foster community mindset, cooperation, self-control. We have all met a 5-year-old who is just bad and can't stand to be around anyone other than their mom. And then their parent or somebody says, well, they don't go to daycare, because that is their third space in little 4-year-old mind. So because they're not socialized in that aspect and they don't have access to those other people, they don't know, they don't have self-control. They have hyperactive behavior. Maybe they're bad in school. They don't have a community mindset. They don't have positive social behaviors. Community mindset, third spaces are linked to a decrease in the odds of teenage pregnancy, illegal, violent, and risky behavior. And it's basically because people are being forced to exist in spaces where they're not the only person with needs, or their needs aren't the most important ones, at least. They have to work with their peers, and they may have to problem solve on their own. There are also a ton of academic benefits linked to third space participation. They build confidence, they decrease the dropout rate, increase GPA for core classes and standardized test scores in math and reading, way higher intrinsic pleasure when solving problems. And then we know that having community and a sense of belonging is one of the strongest predictors of academic persistence and mental well-being. So, intrinsic motivation and the drive to tackle complex tasks was also an indicator of long term academic success. So, on top of the social benefits that are linked to involvement and participation in these spaces, there's also confirmed academic benefits to these spaces and their participation. So, a lot of conversation is happening right now around third spaces that are disappearing. Americans reported they spent about 6.5 hours a week with friends, but from 2014 to 2019, it dropped to about 4 hours a week. And then, as you can imagine, during the COVID-19 pandemic, it dropped even more because a lot of our favorite places that we would hang out were forced to close and they potentially didn't reopen. So we adapted to living without them and we kind of never went back. Social media and digital platforms kind of took the space of that, and they're great and they're awesome and they're convenient, especially for situations like this, greater access and everything. But they just aren't the same and they don't have the same benefits as being in person and having physical senses of community. Um, just the other day, my boss and I were going to hop on a Teams call with someone from our math department, and when he realized that we were in the office, he was like, "Wait, can I just come over there and talk to you guys?" People are craving that connection again, and there's a ton of reasons that third spaces have started to disappear. Like I said, the COVID-19 pandemic, the increase of social media, lots of socioeconomic issues, urban sprawl and capitalism, wealth segregation, stuff like that. Um, but where we come in is reestablishing what our third spaces are and what they can be. So, our physical space, talking about our study hall areas, our academic centers. Think about your space and where your students spend their time when they come into your facility. You may be unintentionally triggering their fight or flight. Are you set up in a way that's going to make them feel welcome, that's going to make them feel invited, or are you set up like a surveillance facility? You when I asked you to think about your favorite space earlier, the coffee shop, the gym, whatever it is, you don't love going there because someone watches you the entire time and they can see everything you're doing. Surveillance in academic spaces is related to a lot of chilling effects. So it basically just ices everyone out. There's limited expression, there's increased anxiety. It creates these very high stakes scenarios, even when things really aren't high stakes. And a lot of your students are reporting feelings of lost privacy. So, what can we do to change that? When you're thinking about your physical space, what's the first thing people see when they come in? Do they see a person or do they see just a computer screen where they have to swipe in? Does every workstation look the same? Are there options for different areas for people to sit? Are there any spaces for just relief, for students to just be? Or is every area in your office dedicated to doing something or being productive? Um, is it set up with the scary overhead lighting? Do you have a row of computers with offices that have walls full of glass windows? Um, my office is a good mix of both, and I have some pictures included that we'll see. And I know what some of you are thinking. This stuff is necessary. Students have to check in. They have to get their hours. We have to be able to monitor them. And that's true. But is there any way we can do it better? So, what can we change? When a student walks in and they see a glass wall, is that inviting? Is that someplace you want to be? Is that going to foster creativity in a community? Probably not. Can we put a person there? Can you have your admin or maybe your receptionist or someone sitting up there? Um, if you don't have an admin or a receptionist, can we have a student worker sitting up there? We'll talk a little bit about co-working later on. And again, I don't want to spend a super long time talking about the physical space because how many of us are really going to get the opportunity or have the budget to redesign our space? Probably not a whole lot of us, but it's worth discussing. So human first entry is a big component. Can we talk to our students when they come in? Can they see a person instead of just a check-in kiosk? Can we have areas where they can, maybe instead of sitting at a computer screen, can we have modular seating zones? We have booths in our office. And like I said, I have some photos that I can show you guys. We have like chairs that can be rearranged so that they can, work together as groups, or they can pull it to the side and work independently. Can you have flexible lighting in your office, or do you only have like I said, the scary overhead corporate fluorescent lighting? And then one of the things that I think is the most important when they come in, are your student athletes seeing themselves? Do they see the university branding? Do they see their team branding? Or is it just kind of dull and gray and boring, Um, our labs and our lab and our tutor rooms don't have the dimmable lighting options, but like our offices and our classroom and stuff do. So that's always a good option. Um, Little things that you can incorporate, because like I said, none of us have massive budgets. Can you do anything to make the place a little less dull? Can you add a plant? Can you add a rug? I've got stuff all over this office just trying to make it a little less, sterile. Um, the most important thing is that we're in an era where students can access information from anywhere. So the place that they choose to access their information has to offer something that their computer screen can't, which is the sense of community. They probably can get everything done online. So we have to build and create a space that they want to be in. If a student's only coming to your center because they have to, I think you're missing the opportunity to build connections. In my opinion, you don't have to spend a ton of money to do that. There are options, like I'm saying about the physical space, where you can. But again, this next part is where I want to spend the bulk of the conversation, because it's the cultural changes that you can make. So these are just some photos of our facility. Like I said, we have the chairs that can move with the desks that can move. They can pull them together, push them apart to work together. We've got the booths. They will get 3 or 4 deep into the booths in there. It's incredible how many of them can manage to fit in there. It's just options. What you don't see in these pictures is that we also have rows of computer screens, and we've also got offices that have glass windows. That's what I'm sitting in right now. So, we've got a healthy mix of both, because at the end of the day, you do also have to be able to do your job and monitor your students. So, some cultural and operational changes that you can make. This is the first one. If you can't move the walls, move the schedule. So, like I said, a lot of us are not ever going to be in positions where we can renovate our entire facility. It's awesome if we can, but chances are we can't. So, acknowledging and leaning into the time vibes that are already created in your office can be a big help. Like for us, almost all of our sports practice in the afternoon, so our mornings are very busy. Can you communicate those times and make sure that students that want to be in a quieter space have access to the facility at that time, and students who maybe like the buzz and like the co-working aspect of it all can come in during those times? For us, 8 to 9 a.m. is usually pretty quiet. And then after like 1 to 2 o'clock, it's pretty quiet. So for our students who prefer that, it's as simple as just telling them, hey, maybe you don't come back until 2 o'clock. Or, hey, can you come back after practice? It'll be a little quieter in here. I think you'll get better work done in there. Something that I would like to improve in our office, can you set up like a coffee shop vibe? Like we have a classroom that's in the front of our room. Can you dim the lights, maybe put on some music, have students be able to work in there independently or as a group, just as something other than sitting in the lab. These times can be communicated via social media. You can write it on the whiteboard, put it on a bulletin board in your office. It just gives students the agency and kind of the independence to pick and choose what fits their schedule as well as what fits their current mental state. And it may change day to day. A student one day might want to come in when it's busy and when it's buzzing, and then the next day they may want to come when it's silent. That's completely okay. Overall, you just want to avoid having forced collaboration or forced silence. It's like I said earlier, you don't love to go to the coffee shop to work because someone tells you to be quiet every 10 minutes or because someone is forcing you to work with someone else that's there. Second thing you can do, challenge the seat time status quo for both students and your staff. So this is a big one for me. For both, for your students, can you move to some form of objective-based study hall? This gives students the opportunity to prioritize getting their work done over the amount of time they spend in their space. It is a little bit more work on the staff side, but from my experience, it creates a less restrictive environment for students. If you don't have the staff or the time or the bandwidth to facilitate a full objective based study hall transition, can you implement something like students are waived from their hours for the rest of the week if they can prove that they're done with all of their assignments? Um, Really, the core of this one, I would just challenge all of you to dig deep and ask yourselves if the hours based system is benefiting your students or if it's just making them hate being in your space. Again, anecdotally, very experiential, but my sport, football, has switched over to objective based study hall, and it has been an incredible change for us. It's what works for us, and I would encourage all of you to at least give it a try. I think that it signals to students that you respect their time and their agency, and it incorporates that come and go as you please aspect of what a third space is supposed to be at its core. Again, you don't love going to the coffee shop because someone tells you you have to spend hours a week there, you know? Um, our study hall, like I said, our study hall time is, or our study hall system for football here. I could do an entire separate presentation about the way we do that, but at its core, it is objective based. We kind of determine who we think needs study hall based on GPA, and then we schedule an hour ish per day per student, Monday through Thursday, because there are so many of them. That it would overwhelm our facility. We don't have a huge lab, so we don't want to ever have all of them in here at one time. But it's a fluid process, meaning that they can work their way in it, they can work their way out of it, but they can work their way out of it on a weekly basis. If they're done for their week, if they're done with all of their work, we don't do a butt in seats requirement for them. Generally speaking, of course, my students are pretty productive when they're in here. They're willing to work when they are at home because they know that there's a prize at the end of the week, which is getting excused from study hall, which they love. And then, you know, we still have a couple of goobers, but if they would rather come in here and not do work instead of just doing their work and being excused, then that's totally fine. One of the ways we kind of set expectations and maintain like calmness in the facility is when we talk to them about study hall and the setup, I refer to it as like a coffee shop vibe, in the same way that you wouldn't walk into a Starbucks and sit down and watch TikTok videos on your iPad on full volume. We wouldn't do that in here either. And so if that's kind of the behavior that we start to see, we'll redirect a couple of times. And then if they don't do that, we just ask them to leave. You know, there's a social contract to being in shared spaces, and that's kind of how we operate with study hall. So then for staff, co-working has so many proven benefits. Can you take inventory of your schedule and identify the busiest times for your sports in study hall? During those times, can you get up and get out of your office and go and sit next to your students and work, or at least physically check in with them while they're in your space? That is part of leveling the hierarchy a little bit. Of course, you are still the adult, but existing in their space is important. And it can signal to them that, you know, you're there for them, that you care about them, and that their work is just as important as yours is. If you are familiar with developmental psychology, you know the term parallel play. It's when babies, usually like 18-month-olds to 3-year-olds, play next to each other with the same toys, but they don't interact with one another. That's pretty much what you're trying to facilitate with your students. It can also be called body doubling. That's like what it's called in, you know, ADHD and some neurodivergent spaces, but I like to call it parallel play because I think it's funnier. Having someone next to you being productive, even if they're not doing the same thing as you, can be a game changer. You know, I had a roommate in school. We had two completely different majors, but we would literally call it our parallel playtime every afternoon. We would find a spot, if it's on the couch, if it's at the table, if it's in one of our rooms, and we would just work on our stuff separately but together. Most important takeaway here is that you can be the catalyst for your students spending an hour or more in like deep work mode. Because if you go out into the lab and you set the tone for this is what we're doing and this is how we're operating, it does exactly that. It sets the tone. It's a game changer. And then lastly, cultural and operational change. Move away from just being compliance based and a little bit more towards connection based. So integrate your students all have multiple identities, but first and foremost, they're human. You know, they're student athletes, but they are young adults. Maybe they're first generations, they're international, maybe they have learning disabilities. So what can we do to shift their experience in here from transactional to relational? Going back to, like we said, with the human first entry. In a lot of centers, the first thing a student is required to do is check in. They have to get their hours. We have to have a way to check them in. Absolutely. But what can we do to get around it being purely transactional? Like I said, can we have a staff member up there greeting them, just saying good morning, saying hello? If not a staff member, can we have a student worker up there? Can anyone basically, can anyone check in with them when they first walk in? If you don't have a designated admin or a student worker or anything, maybe that's where your staff does their co-working. Instead of being out in the lab, can they go sit in the front at the check-in kiosk or wherever, you know, your students swipe in or write down when they check in or anything like that. Another thing, if you have worked in retail ever, you probably know about this rule. It's called the 3-foot rule. But if a student is ever within 3 feet of you, can you just say hello? Can you say good morning? Can you check in? Apply that 3-foot rule to your lab. If you miss them on their way in, can you catch them on their way out? Just if you didn't say hello, can you tell them have a great day on their way out? Our admin, Miss Helen, does a fantastic job of greeting and telling everyone to have a great day on their way out. She probably knows more about some of my students than I do because she's constantly checking in with them every time they come in here. And again, I know not everyone is lucky enough to have someone designated to sit up there, but like I said, can we put a student worker up there during our busiest times? Can we have a staff member sitting up there? Is there any way that we can have that first check-in be with a person and not just a kiosk? Second one, quick connections by having something they need or that they want. Transfer portal era of college athletics, specifically for me, college football. We don't have 4 years anymore to build rapport with our students in the way that we used to. So we need quick connections. We need to get them on board and get them with our program as quickly as we can without it being overbearing or feeling forced. So can we have anything beyond like the bare minimum, even if it's something as simple as sticky notes, index cards? Can we have, I have fidget spinners, I have phone chargers, you know, small things like that that we can have in our office just so that students know that this is a hub where if they need something, there's a chance that it might be able to be taken care of in our facility. There is research that shows that people are more likely to remember and have positive associations with people who exhibit pro-social behavior, so people who are willing to help, which is in that same vein. You know, can you have anything? Tissues, lotion. The lotion in my office is a huge hit. The tissues that my colleague Kayla keeps and that our admin up in the front keeps, huge hit. And then another way to keep it, like if you're trying to keep it truly free, which I would love to do, can you do anything that would just be like a shared ritual that would make the sense of community visually apparent? So can you have win walls? Can you have goal boards that all students can participate in? The topics on these things don't even have to be academic or sport related, just a fun and easy way to engage all of the students equally that come into your space. I've got some pictures later on that I can show of that because I think our office does a good job of doing that as well. So then quick talk about just the starter kit. What can we do? If I had the opportunity to start a facility from the ground up, phase 1, without spending any money, these are the 3 things that we can do to lean more towards the third space vibe. So number 1, redesign the entry protocol. It is so easy to just have someone at the front of your facility saying hello, saying good morning, checking in, making sure everything's running smoothly. Like I said, Miss Helen, our admin, catches so many issues up at the front just because she's up there. Number two, I would lean into the time zones that we have that naturally occur. Like that's the thing, is that you don't have to do any work to let those happen. Every kind of time vibe in our office has happened organically just based on when our sports are practicing, when our students have class, and other things like that. Really lean into those. Can we communicate with our students? Like I said, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. is quiet time. 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. is coffee shop time. We're going to play music. There's going to be a lot of people moving around. Maybe that's when like recruits come in. Just really lean into those and communicate those to your students. And then again, in phase one, I would implement co-working. So have your staff members, your counselors, your learning specialists, whoever they are, get up and get out into the space, work with and next to your students, be near them, physically near them. If you can't get up and get away from your desk, can you at least have your door open, something like that, just so that they know you're available? And again, level the playing field a little bit. Phase two, because these are either kind of costly or maybe a little more work on your staff, would be those quick connections and then switching to objective-based study hall. Again, what can we have in our office that would create a little sense of need or of I don't want to say urgency, but like I have students that pop in all the time that are like, I have a pencil. Do you have, I need a pencil. I need a pencil. And I have that. So those things do cost money, which is why I would put them in phase two. But I think they're an awesome way to teach students that your space is more than just come in here, do work and leave. And then objective-based study hall, like I said, show students that you care about their time, that you value their time, that you think their time is important. Again, it is a little more work on staff to transition to something like that, but I think it's worth it in my opinion. And then phase three would be any physical changes that you can make. So that would be like any lighting changes, adding new furniture, maybe knocking down walls. Those would be, again, at the very end because it costs money and we don't all have a lot of money. So that is okay. So in conclusion, silent and surveillance-based study hall, it's outdated, it's not effective, it increases anxiety, it just doesn't really work. Your student athletes need a physical and a psychological environment that fosters a sense of belonging. Again, they can access their information from pretty much anywhere. If they're coming to your space, it's going to be because they want to, for the most part. And you don't need $1,000 budget to transform your space. You really just need the want and the drive to do it. These are some pictures of our space, like I talked about before. This first one on the left-hand side was the idea of one of our social media interns. Kayla's on this call. It's one of her interns. It is like a Japanese tradition. It's supposed to be on a bamboo tree, but we didn't have a bamboo tree. We didn't buy one. We had this plant. This is what we used. You tie a goal to the tree, and it's initially supposed to be on a bamboo tree because bamboo grows straight up towards the sky. So it's like your goals are going towards the sky. We had a ton of students participate in this. It's awesome. And then right behind that, our whiteboard is where we write just little messages. Right now it's talking about advising and registration. Let's lock in and finish strong. That's Miss Helen's note to everyone. We've got our entire staff and their offices so that if anyone comes in, they know exactly where to go. And then right behind that is Miss Helen's desk. That's where she sits and welcomes everyone and does a fantastic job. On the right, we actually just got this put up. So the library does these, but it's in our office. It's only been up for a couple of days and we've already got some pretty good participation. So best advice for first and second year students. We had a lot of our upperclassmen come in and leave little notes on there. It's been a really great thing to see them. And no one tells them to do these things either. That's what's awesome, is that the paper went up, they saw it, and they just started participating. They just started writing on it because it's a shared ritual. People want to participate in stuff like this. And then these are two more of our other things. Again, these are all Miss Kayla's doing. Question of the week right now is, what are you looking forward to? I know in the past it was like, how do you manage your tasks and like your practice schedule and everything that you have going on. And I don't know if it's very apparent in this photo, but she has the paper taped behind her window, and then people write on the window with expo markers, so that when we want to do a new question, all we have to do is erase it and rewrite it, so that we're not using a new piece of paper every time. So we have one piece of paper that gets reused every single time. So very cost efficient, very effective. And then we did at the very beginning of the semester, Ms. Kayla did this again, spring 26 goals. And we had to push a little bit for this one because it was the very first one we did. But again, we had great participation in this one. And then ever since, in our questions of the week and in our advice board that's at the front now, we've had great levels of participation. So students want the community-based things. They want to be part of something. You know, it's just on us to create an environment where they can and where they're able to and where they feel comfortable to. So quick one thing audit. Think about your center space. What within reason could you change? Or think about your center's rules and policies. What is something that exists that is just for staff convenience, and how could you flip it into something that fits the third space model? So, like I said, for us, one of the things, I think we have a great center, and I think we do a really good job at this. One of the things that I would like to see us do is, like I talked about, kind of the coffee shop hour, where we go in the classroom in the front, dim the lights, we put on some music, and we work. That can be communicated via social media. We can put up flyers about it. Like, that doesn't have to be anything. You don't have to provide food or drinks or anything. It's just a designated, like, if you want to work in this way, it's going to be open and it's available to you, in the same way that your coffee shop might do live music or something similar to that, you know? If anyone wants to share, I would love to hear from people if they have any ideas or thoughts or anything about either one of these questions. Oh,
Oh, I was
I
gonna
see.
say,
That's
uh,
great.
Kayla had said too, like, oh, once you ask and there's a few posted, more people will participate. I have a whiteboard in my office and I have right now two questions. One's open-ended, one is like a poll survey. And I definitely try and fill it out when I know students are in my office, because like they'll have an opinion, or I've had a couple of times like they get excited and they want to create the question. I'm like, yes, let's go for it. Like, one of the most hotly debated ones was, what's your most popular game on your phone? And I did not know there were so many games, and like they were add-ins, there were like it was very interesting. But it's kind of fun just to see like where their thoughts are. And I've had like tutors come in, other staff members come and vote, and it really is like a good like just conversation starter too.
Yeah, and it's like Kayla said, a lot of times nobody wants to be the first one to participate, but once someone puts something up there and they see that it's like okay to share, they jump in. And like I said, we did the first one, we did the goal board, and then everything we've done since then has had, in my opinion, really good participation. And then the library came in and put up the advice board, and we didn't even have to say anything to them. People just started filling it out because it's just what they do in here now, you know? Does anyone have anything that they would like to share? Or does anyone have any questions or comments? I got through that very quickly. I talk very fast. I'm so sorry. Rihanna, write their answers on my way. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's kind of what we've been doing with the first couple in the, let me see if I can get back to it. My computer gets a little finicky. At the bottom left where it says graduation, that's my handwriting. And then on the spring goals, 4.0 in my grad school classes, those are mine. So definitely understand. Yep, Kay always writes the first one.
Yeah, I think I put spring break up there. They definitely they like to see someone else do it, and of course it is anonymous, so they don't necessarily know that it's not their peers. They just see, oh, somebody's got it started, so I'll jump.
Kayla, was the paper behind the glass, was that your idea, or did someone, did you find that somewhere?
I don't remember if it was me or my social media interns, but I think because I just moved into that office this year, so I was like, oh, let's put a white. I can't remember if it was my idea or my intern's idea, but I was like, oh, that's perfect because then we just and I like the dry erase board because then if they mess up, they can erase it, and it's like not that big of a deal. Um,
We're not wasting supplies. We're not wasting sticky
no,
notes.
and we already have dry erase on markers for the classroom and things like that, so. I don't remember how I got that idea, but I don't remember, but
Yeah, it's
very
awesome.
effective, very cheap.
Very cheap, very effective, very great. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I love the world map. That's an awesome one. Is that where they travel or is that where they're from? Or both? Okay, love that. Love that. All right. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything like that? Like I said, I talk very fast and I was trying to make um, sure that I slowed down and I still got through it way faster than I was supposed to. So,
I think one of the questions that I would have for you, Miranda, is how do you balance like getting work done, like your job? Because of course we love our students, and but if we spent 8 to 2 every single day, just like being with like
hanging
just
out.
how do you work from 2 to 5 would be my question.
Pretty much that is my setup right now. So Kayla knows a little bit what my office looks like during the day. I'm very busy from like 8 to 11. I've got most that's when the bulk of my students are in study hall. That's when they tend to be the neediest. And then 11, well, usually about noon after I eat and decompress for a second, is just my afternoons are like my deep work time pretty much. All of my like administrative stuff gets done in the afternoons. Sometimes I will try to start a task in the mornings and I just end up getting interrupted every 5 minutes. So I'll be lucky to get one or two things done in the morning. But past that, I save my like big tasks like we check grades weekly. That's I'm not even going to attempt to do that from 8 to 11. You know, that's going to happen after lunch. That's going to be in the afternoon. For anything else that's like we just had registration. Registration was open. Our first block opened at 9 a.m. I sent out a teamwork blast like a hey, I'm unavailable from 9 to 9:30. I'm going to close. I also never have my door closed. So if my door is closed for some reason, that's kind of a signal. Just like, hey, give me a second. Close my door, sent out the teamworks, and just worked for the 30 minutes that I needed to, and then kind of let everyone in. Um, and like it's kind of just it's a little bit of a balancing act. Like I said, we kind of set it up like it's a it's a coffee shop vibe. So like you just kind of have to set and maintain the expectations. Like I said, I never close my door. So if my door is closed, that's a signal like, hey, give me a second. I'm kind of never out of my office or out of our office. So if I am, that's kind of a signal like, hey, something's going on. But that's what works for me. That's the balance that works for me. You mentioned social media intern. Are they? Um, what do you mean by promoting the space? And Kayla may have more to say about that.
We have a pinned post of like a video of our space whenever it first opened, but yeah, what is can you explain further like how they promote it? Oh, well, we haven't tried the
Oh
coffee shop
yes.
times yet,
Yeah,
but
no, we have that's something that I would like to do in the future. And
yeah,
yeah, I think social media would be a great way to do that. And then, like I
yeah.
said, our little whiteboard that we have in the front, our students reference that a lot. Um, we have papers posted all over in here, like on our office doors and stuff. That's how I would like to promote it. Yes, yes, and we have a separate social media just for our like we have an Instagram for our center specifically, not like our main athletics account or anything like that.
I think it's really interesting too how social media can kind of be a third space too, and I think that's what we're trying to do. We haven't got so much engagement as we want, but how can like the social media page also be a space too to balance those?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, okay, we also have a TV in our facility, and we have talked multiple times about being able to use it as an information hub. And we keep kind of hitting some roadblocks there, but that's also a great way to do it. I would love to be able to put things like that, like coffee shop hour, for example, or like, again, like the registration window, like we're all going to be unavailable at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, stuff like that. I would love to be able to put that on our TVs, but we're having some trouble figuring out the logistics of that part. But that is the goal for us as well.
Hey, Miranda, I wanted to kind of circle back to your idea about the design space. I had been on a call a while ago where they talked about the importance of, particularly in your office, of how having something like pillows or blankets might be something that the student athletes gravitate towards. Because if they're sharing something with you that maybe is a heavy topic or something they're not comfortable with, just either sitting across from you or even next to you, they feel very exposed, where they can pick up a pillow or a blanket and kind of hold it to their chest, and now there's kind of a barrier which kind of makes them feel a little bit comforted, and maybe they're willing to share more.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm I I wish I had a picture of. Okay, so Suzanne in our in the chat said have an athletic conversation to carry over the welcoming spaces at their facility. We're separated here is the context. We're on main campus, and then about a mile down the street is our athletic campus. So we're in the library. They're in a completely separate, not only building but like physical area from us. She and her office is like our academic center annex a little bit. She's got Chromebooks and desks and stuff in there. She has these massive bean bags with pillows, and that is their space in there. They flop down on those bean bags and they look up at the ceiling, because that's the other thing is they don't want to make eye contact when they're sharing potentially like sensitive topics with you. So they look up at the ceiling and they talk to her on the side. I don't have anything like that, but I have a ton of fidgets, and I have like tic-tac-toe and stuff like that. I have learned more about my students while they are sitting and building a puzzle, or, fidgeting with a toy like this, than I ever have. Like, having a meeting, like just staring at each other. I'm sure for exactly what you're saying, because they want to, it helps them let their guard down. They don't feel like they're in a meeting. They don't feel like they're in an interview. They're just sitting and playing with their little toy. And they talk to you. I'm sure it's related to play therapy in some way, but yeah, exactly. And I mean, that would go back into like the cultural changes that you can make. If your office is empty and sterile, nobody's going to want to come in there. And then when they do come in there, are they going to want to be forthcoming with you? Are they going to want to share things past just their academics with you? Maybe, but in my experience, probably not. So that's where stuff like this comes from for me. Lots of fidget toys. Yes. I've also seen, yeah, the fluorescent light covers, like the trees or the leaves. What do they call them that you can put up? Thankfully, I have dimmable lighting in my office. So usually from like 8 to 12 with the way the sun is, I don't even need to turn my lights on. I like to put them on in the afternoon because it just gets a little too dark for me. Our GAs work in complete darkness. They both have lamps in their office, and they work in like just the dark. But if it works for them and it works for their students, it works for me. I love it. Oh, I like a feelings wheel too. That's a good one as well. And yeah, they're definitely looking for safe spaces. I mean, and for me, I tend, or anyway, tend to get a little, I get like a little woo woo about my academic approaches and my educational philosophies and stuff like that. But that's what I want for my students. I didn't take this job just to look at their grades every week and only talk to them about their academic progress. There are 100 million other things that are involved with being a productive member of society and a successful student and a successful student athlete. So yeah, just trying to create that space a little bit. And again, like I said, you don't like going to your coffee shop or your gym or wherever it is because it's sterile and boring and people fuss at you and make you be quiet. You like going there because it feels safe and it's welcoming and it's a hub and you have community and you can participate. And, that's it. That's what I'm trying to make here. So we do only have about 4 minutes left. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to share. I really appreciate you all being here.
Hi, Miranda. I'm sorry I'm asking this question at the end mark, but my name is Jerice Tillery. I work at UGA as a learning specialist, but I also assist with the like scheduling format of like study hall. So my
Mhm.
question is, and I think it's very unique about the objective-based study hall approach, which is what we do at Georgia, but what I find an issue being is that our students do not like coming in after that practice window. And because they have the narrow availability during the day, whether that's the LS sessions, whether that's the tutoring commitment, whether it's any other like treatment, so we're already limited during the day. So I guess my question is, what is your advice to still use that objective-based approach? However, how do we get them to buy in more if their schedules are so limited and they do not want to return following their practice time? So, like the evening times, they're just not popular.
Yeah, we are not either. I'm like, honestly, we
Hmm.
stay open until 9 p.m., but
Hmm.
a lot of our afternoon folks are our hours based people because they just
Hmm.
come in here and they kind of sit and they don't do anything. And we usually only have one staff member in here. So the like ability to redirect and make people stay engaged is a little lower. For us, I think I kind of said it earlier. We're like half objective because we do schedule their times. So like if we have someone who's in class Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 9:50, and then 11 to 11:50, it's in their teamworks and it's on their schedule that they come in at 10. So it's objective based, but unless you've checked out with someone, you're expected to be here at 10 o'clock from 10 until you go to your 11 o'clock class. That's been the way that well, number one, to like mitigate overpopulation in the facility. And then a lot of times for like our older students or our people who have super tight schedules, I'll give them the option. Like, hey, you can either squeeze it in between these two classes, you can come at 1 o'clock, or you have to come at 7. Because then if we run into scheduling problems where they don't want to come back or they're like, being sassy about having to return, it's like, well, this is the schedule that you picked. And that, I mean, that has worked for us. We, of course, like we still have people who are just kind of turds about it every now and then, but that's worked for us. Um,
No,
oh, and then,
thank you. Thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate it. I
does
like
that
your
make
point
sense?
about like giving them a little bit more autonomy in regarding like their session times. I think that's a big one because
Yeah.
oftentimes the counselors are like, "Oh yeah, they can come at 7," and the students like, "Wait, I don't want to come at 7."
I don't want to come at
So
seven.
I think that, yeah, I like
Especially for like our ones who would be scheduled at it's like 8 a.m. or 1 to 2, but then meetings start at 2:30. Like they don't want to do that, but then they also don't want to come at 8. So I'm like, okay, we have to pick because
right, right,
you need 12 hours for PTD and you got to have study hall. So which time are you coming? So then when they're off or when they are late or when they have attitude about missing, it's like, well, this is what you picked
right,
this. So
right. Thank you.
yeah, of course. And then, yeah, like Misty said, we have the separate support study hall for like guys who don't always finish their stuff, like the ones that we need extra eyes on. We, during the season, we do those on Monday nights because that's their off day. Sometimes we do it on Thursday nights because practice tends to be a little shorter on those days. I mean, yeah, it's different every semester. It's very fluid, always. All right. Anything else? Thanks for coming, everyone. I'm going to turn off my screen share.
Thank y'all so much again too for joining and great job, Miranda. We appreciate it.